Are you a beginner quilter or an experienced quilter looking for a new fast project? I've got some ideas for you. Hi, it's Hannah with Fabric Café. It's 2025, which means it's time to start our new quilt projects. We're gonna go over 6 patterns that are perfect for beginners or experienced quilters looking for something a little bit different. Let's check out our first one. This is our Levity pattern from the Make It Easy with 3-Yard Quilts book. This is a great one to start off with if you're a beginner. We only have one block that you make over and over and just turn every which way so you have this really cool 3-dimensional look on your quilt. And the block is super simple. We have a rectangle right here in the center, which is a nice size so you can use a good focus fabric. And then we make a strip assembly, cut units off of it, and then you just put one and rotate it on either side so you have this really fun effect. Goes together super, super quick. So let's put it on the table and look at some fabric. Let's dive a little bit deeper into how to make the Levity pattern. First off, I said we have a nice rectangle right here. All you have to do for that is you're gonna cut a with the fabric strip. And for all my newbies out there, with the fabric strip, your fabric is folded selvage to selvage. So you can see I have the ends of both my fabric. Doop, they are folded together. And a with the fabric strip is just cutting from one end all the way so you have a nice long strip. From that, you're going to cut pieces. We're just gonna cut some rectangles from it. So you have a nice long strip and then you go in and you cut your rectangles. And the pattern will tell you exactly what size you need to cut them. If you keep it folded over when you're cutting your rectangles, you get 2. So that saves you some time while you're making your quilt. Then we're gonna make a strip assembly. And a strip assembly starts the same way we just did our rectangles. You're gonna cut along with the fabric strip, and usually it's 2 to 3, sometimes even 4, and you're gonna sew those together on the long edge right here. Now we've already cut some units off of it, so it's not the full length, and you can see this is what that looks like. So the pattern will tell you what size unit to cut off, and you can see we just, whoop, cut that right off of the end of that. So you're gonna cut a couple of those for each block, and you're gonna sew one like this, and then you're just gonna take your other one and you're gonna rotate it so that it's on opposite corners. And that is what makes your block. So I have a couple finished blocks right here. And when you put them on your quilt, we have one here going vertical. And then you can see right above it, we have one going horizontal. So that's what makes this fun, like crisscross. And you can see when they meet up here, it makes this kind of extra design in your quilt, which is really cool. And you just sew them in long rows, sew the rows together, and then you get this. It's gonna go together really, really fast, really fun too. And I just love that 3D effect that you get. So let's take a closer look at this fabric. First, our fabric 1, we have these beautiful florally medallions with all of these different colors on them on this really nice mottled purple background. That's gonna go everywhere you see this circle right here. Then our number 2, we just pulled a really soft blue kind of linen texture, and that picks up the nice soft blues that we have in a lot of our medallions. And that's gonna go in our number 2 position, which is right here. And our number 3 fabric is this floral purple brocade, which is really neat. And it picks up all of these kind of like weathered textural designs that are in the medallions. And it's on a nice pink background, which picks up a lot of the colors that are in our focus fabric. That's gonna go everywhere you see this teal right here. So it'll give a really nice background. And if you're new to Fabric Café and 3-Yard Quilts, how we select our fabrics, our number 1 fabric or our focus fabric is usually the print we wanna show off the most or the largest print. And then we take that out of the equation and we select our number 2 and 3. Our number 2 is always the lightest in the quilt, and our number 3 is the darkest. So you compare your 2 and 3 to see what would be your light and dark. You can see all of that really strong contrast between our number 1 fabric and our 2 and 3 really makes those medallions look like they're popping off the top of the quilt and makes that fun, twisty, twirly kind of design across the surface of your quilt. And I love how the pink frames it out, and it brings in all of those colors that are in our focus, but adds a really nice contrast and pop. The kit name for this kit is Purple Peace, and it's using the Levity pattern, which is from our Make It Easy book. This is actually one of my favorite patterns, and it's for a couple different reasons. We have a nice 4-patch right here, but it's rectangular instead of our normal square, which I think is really interesting. Then we have this nice sashed block, and because the way the 4 patches meet up, it kind of looks like that block is hovering on the surface of your quilt. This is our Park Place pattern from the Fast and Fun book, and it goes together very quickly because we just have that nice strip assembly with the strips on both sides and that easy 4 patch. So let's put it on the table and look at some fabric. All right, our next quilt builds upon those skills that we just learned in our first one with Levity and our strip piecing, but we're just gonna take it up a little bit. First off, this block right here, we're gonna make, again, a strip assembly. We do a lot of strip assemblies in our patterns, but it really does speed up the process because you're not having to fussy cut a lot of little things. So we have our nice strip assembly here, and we have a unit that we cut off, and that's the base of our block. So you're gonna make a bunch of those, and then you're just gonna take really long with the fabric strips. You can see I have my selvages on either end, and you're gonna sew them to the sides of your block. So this is a great place to try chain piecing because you can just have your strip and just sew all of one side on and then trim them apart after, giving just a little space between each. And then you're going to, after you sew it on, you'll trim them all even, and you'll sew a strip onto the other side. So you don't have to cut your strips before you sew them on, so you're not having to go in and, cut a bunch of however size strip, like rectangle strips to put on the side. So that makes it go quickly too. Then your block is gonna end up looking like this. Ta-da! You see we have our nice unit in the center, which is our strip assembly, with the 2 strips sewn on either side. We do have our seam allowances on still, so the blocks are gonna look a little bit bigger than what's on the quilt. Your secondary block is that fun rectangular 4 patch. And I really like how different that is. We see 4 patches all the time, but they're usually a square, which are still great. I love me a 4 patch. But this one is just a little bit different. It's a little unique. We're gonna start off the same way with the strip assembly. Easy, we got that down now. 2 strips sewn on the long edge together. And you're gonna cut off 2 units for each 4 patch. So you can see, let me get that one out of the way. We just cut it right off the edge. You're gonna cut 2 of those, and you're just gonna rotate one like we did in that first one. But these are gonna get sewn together. So you just flip it on over, make sure they're lined up. I usually put a pin just right in the center seam. I don't pin anything else. I just want to try to get that lined up, sew my block together, and then you end up with your 4 patch. Perfect. Easy, it's gonna go together really fast. So let's take a look at the fabric we're working with because I love this so much. So our number 1 is this really kind of fancy, abstract-y, paisley floral with these greens and blues and oranges. It's just really bright. And that's gonna go in our number 1 position, which is in that center of the square and one of our 4 patch colors. Our number 2, the lightest in our stack, is this soft green, which picks up the greens that are in here, but adds a nice contrast to the white background of our focus. And that's gonna go framing everywhere around our focus center here and on the border. Then our number 3, and I actually think that the number 3 is my favorite fabric in this kit because it's just so interesting. It picks up the same twirly floral design that's in the focus, but it's like tightly packed together, and it's in these beautiful teals, blues, greens. I think it is so soothing and has just so much pop and contrast. And this is gonna go in our 4 patch here, as well as on a border here, and on a border here, and our binding. And you can see how it just looks like that focus block with the sashing on it. It just looks like it's lifting off the top of the quilt. And I love the way that the number 3 works with the number 1 in that 4 patch. There's a lot of similarities between the fabric, but there's a lot of color difference so that it really shows off and makes that block pop on its own. This kit is called Garden Spirals, and it's using the Park Place pattern from our Fast and Fun book. If you're looking for a bold but easy pattern to try this year, this is a really great one. This is our bold blocks from our Pretty Darn Quick book, and it has this nice asymmetrical movement down the quilt, so you have a lot of movement, but the blocks are really easy to put together. You just have one big square, which will accommodate a directional fabric, and then you just sash it on one side with your number 3, then your number 2. You're gonna do the exact same thing on the next row, but you're gonna change what side you sash. So on here, we have it here, doot, doot, doot. And on this one, the second row, we have it going the opposite direction. And that's what gives you your back and forth movement down the quilt. It's really fast, really fun. And fun fact, you can actually use a directional fabric in all 3 positions because of how the fabric goes. So let's put it on the table and look at our fabric. All right, we're gonna step away from the strip assemblies for a minute and look at another type of block that is just as easy to make. The first thing you're gonna do is you're gonna cut a very large square. We cut our long with the fabric strip, but instead of doing a rectangle like we did at the start, we're just gonna do a square. Very easy, very simple. And that's gonna go right in the center here. Ta-da! So we have a nice big block. And notice that this is directional. So all of our animals are going to be going the right direction. We're not gonna have to turn any upside down because we cut this block independently. So if you have directional fabric, that's a great trick to look at. See if it's cut individually, then it will work in your pattern. We're gonna take long with the fabric strips, just like we did in Park Place. And we're gonna sash the block on 2 sides. So we have our nice long strip of our fabric 3. That's gonna go here. And I'll start when I'm sewing these, I'll start it just a little bit. I'll leave the selvage on and I'll just give myself a little bit of room and sew there. So then I'm not having to do a lot of extra trimming either, because that's not fun. Then you take another with the fabric strip and you sew it to the other side, and that's what gives us our nice frame right there. Then we have our fabric number 2. Same thing, long with the fabric strip. And notice, this is also directional, but because the way the pattern is written, you could use a stripe in the number 2 and the number 3 position. It would still work because this one is going to be turned this way. So it's always gonna go the right direction on your block. And then your other strip, that's gonna go on this side and your stripes are gonna be going that way. So they never have to meet up. You don't have to worry about joining your stripes, and it's always gonna fall naturally and easy. I've used directional fabric in all 3 positions in this quilt before, and it turned out really fun. So if you've got a lot of stripes in your stash and you're trying to figure out how to use them up, this is a good pattern to try. So you can see it all finished, looks stunning. You're gonna do the exact same thing for your other block. However, you can see we just did it on the other side. So you just reverse it, and that's what gives you your nice movement down the quilt. It's really easy, it's really fast. You're gonna be able to knock this out in no time. So let's look a little closer at these amazing animals. We have this beautiful little forest scene with our deer and our foxes and a little raccoon. I love a raccoon on a fabric. I think they're so cute. And little birds and owls. It's just beautiful on this really soothing kind of sagey green. Then our number 2 fabric is a wood grain, which I love because, you know, it picks up all of the vibes of our forest and the focus fabric. But it's this nice kind of taupey tan cream color. So it picks up the colors of the animals, like the lighter textures, and it adds a lot of contrast. Then for our number 3, we have this nice textural kind of wavy print in a dark green, and that picks up all of the colors of our leaves. So it contrasts with this nice soft green background of our focus, but it picks up all of the darker colors that are on top of that. And you can see those nice big blocks really accommodate those forest animals nicely. You can use a really large print in this block and it will still show up really well. And then we've got our number 2, just really framing it out and making that number 3 pop so you can see that asymmetrical design. And I really like how the borders frame it out, where we have that nice kind of smaller border of our fabric 3 with that number 2 in the middle. I just think it kind of warms it up and gives it a lot of extra interest. So our kit information for this one is Woodland Wonder, using the Bold Blocks pattern from our Pretty Darn Quick book. This is our Harmony pattern from the Easy Does It book. And this one, I believe the inspiration for it was kind of a Zen garden with the stones stacked on top of each other. So that's why we have this nice vertical line up our quilts. And it is a very soothing pattern. And I love the blocks you make for it. We have a nice stitch and flip, which we'll get more into at the table because it is one of my favorite methods, I think, in quilting. And then we alternate it with a nice rectangular block that's just sashed on 2 sides. So it goes together really fast. It's a fun new adventure. If you've never tried a stitch and flip, this is a good one to start off with it. And we have a nice place for a large directional fabric right here. Let's dive into how to make a stitch and flip. Stitch and flip is actually one of my favorite blocks to make, I think. If you're a little intimidated about doing half square triangles, this is a good place to start. They're a little bit easier, they go together really quickly, and I think they're kind of fun. So what I mean by a stitch and flip block is this one right here. So you can see just our corners are come up right here. So this is a snowball, but we do also have some patterns where it's just like 1 or 2 corners have the stitch and flip on them. So there's a lot of options with this technique. So first we're gonna start with just a nice big square. Easy, done. Then we're gonna cut a little square for our corner. And this one, we're gonna draw a line from corner to corner. And then we're just gonna take our square with our line and we're gonna put it right in the corner. So you see it's lined up right here. Now, what's different about doing this versus a half square triangle you sew on either side of your line. But here we get to sew directly on the line. So that's helpful too for beginners because it gives you a guide. You get to actually look at it and see it. So we're gonna do that, and I have an example of that right here. And then we're gonna trim it. What you're gonna do is I just have a little ruler, little square, and I'm gonna take my 1/4 inch line and place it directly onto my seam, right there, and line it up. Then I'm just gonna trim the rest of that off. Ta-da! And that gets put off to the side. And there you have 1 corner done. We're gonna press that and it's gonna get flipped over like that. You're gonna do that on all 4 corners and you're gonna end up with a block like this. So it's really fast and easy. I really like this technique. Like I said, I'm saying it a lot, but it's really fun. So it's a good way to delve into something new if you've never tried it. And that's gonna go right in our center here. This fabric is very much my vibe. This is one that I would walk into the shop and immediately be drawn to. Our focus has all of these bright, different colors going on. We have these bursts of florals and different prints, kind of this little hexagon right there and dots. There's a lot of activity. It's really eye-catching. And this is gonna go everywhere you see our snowball right here. Then our number 2, we just went with this soft gray textural print so that it would not distract from our focus and our number 3. And it would just create a nice soft background for it, but still have some interest going on. And that's gonna go everywhere you see this green leaf right here. And then our number 3 is this textural black, kind of like a night sky almost, with all of these brightly different colored stars on it. And I just love brightly colored. I love that bold contrast between the bright stars on that darker background. And it picks up all of these dark colors in here and the brightness of our focus. And that's gonna go everywhere you see this teal right here and on our border and binding. I love the way that really bright and that darker fabric just contrast with each other and create a really strong design. And you know, it kind of looks like a beaded necklace to me. Actually, I know the inspiration was stones, but I think you could also say that it was a necklace. and I love it. I think it turned out so nice. That gray background lets the other two fabrics really be the star of your show. And the kit information for this is Floral Starbursts using the Harmony pattern from our Easy Does It book. This is another great one block quilt. So this is our Tumbler pattern from the One Block 3-Yard Quilt book. And the block is right here. It's comprised of 4 different units, which are a half square triangle, which is just sashed on one side. And they're a nice size half square triangle, so they'll go together really quickly. You won't have to make as many of them because they're bigger, and it makes this really cool diamond right in the center. I love this motif. I just love that geometric. I think it's so much fun and adds so much interest to a quilt. And you just alternate these big blocks, and then you have your tumbler. So let's go step it out. Let's talk half square triangles. They are not as scary or intimidating as they seem. I know I was really intimidated by them when I first started, but I've actually grown to really enjoy them. So there is no reason why you can't jump in and take a stab and do them yourself. We do have a tutorial on how to step through, like how to make a half square triangle. So if you're looking for a little bit of help, that's a really good guide to get you started on that. So we're gonna look at Tumbler. This is a really good one if you're just starting with half square triangles, because we have a nice size half square triangle, and that does make a difference. It makes it a little bit easier you don't have the quantity that you would have if you were doing smaller ones. So let's take a look at how all of them come together to make this big block. Because, I mentioned this is a one block, right here, but what's even crazier is within it, you have more one blocks. They're just made in different colorways. So learning the pattern will also be really easy for this one. How your pieces go together, we start with our half square triangle, and then what you're gonna do is you're gonna take long width of fabric strips, just like we've done for our other ones, to sash it on 2 sides. And that's gonna go right here. And then we take another one, and it's gonna go right there. So it frames out our block nicely. Now I have a finished one of that. So we have our beautiful block right there. You're gonna have that same one right here, and we're just gonna rotate it right here so that these points will meet, and that's what kind of starts your diamond. Then we are gonna make the exact same block, but just move our fabrics around a little bit. So this time, instead of having our focus in our half square triangle framed out with the 3, we're gonna put our fabric 3 in the center with our fabric 1 as the sashing. And that's gonna go right here, which is so fun how they meet up right there. You have a lot of different colors coming together, which I love. And then you have another one just rotated, and it goes right there. So you have this really cool diamond that has all of these different colors in it. It's really fun and really easy. I think you should definitely give it a go if you've never tried a half square triangle, or if you have and you just want to try something a little bit different. So let's check out our fabric for this because it is gorgeous. For our number 1, we have these gold peacock leaves. And I know we've talked about how the metallics are really good on fabrics now, but this one seems especially just radiant. It is so shimmery and elegant. It is very eye-catching, really lights up when the light hits it. It's gorgeous. And this is gonna go in our half square triangles and on one of our borders right here and on the border of our quilt. Our number 2 we chose is this really nice pearlescent. So it doesn't have gold on it, but it has this nice sheen to it still. So it's a soft white with a slightly cream pearlescent texture on top. So we still have that depth that the focus fabric has. And that's gonna go in all of our half square triangles, as well as on one of our borders. And then our number 3 is this really fun textural print. And I'm really drawn to these kinds of designs too. It has all of these sort of floral stacked shapes on top of each other and these really nice teals and with a metallic gold on it that picks up the gold in our focus. And that's gonna be in one of our borders here on our blocks, as well as in the center of our half square triangle here, and our binding. I think the contrast between the number 1 and that number 3 is so striking. I'm really drawn to quilts that have this very strong contrast. I like having a light in the background so that it really makes your piecing show up and you can see all of that hard work you did. And that teal and black just complement each other so nicely. I think this one turned out stunning. All right, the kit information for this gorgeous fabric is Feather Flourish, using the Tumbler pattern from our 1 block 3-yard quilt books. Believe it or not, this is another 1 block. This is our Boomerang pattern, and it is an individual pattern. What you're doing is you're making the exact same block, but in 2 different colorways. So you'll be able to get in a rhythm and really get going. And it's really simple too. Right in the center here, we just have a strip assembly. And then on this side, it's a half square triangle and a rectangle. So you sew this together and then you sew that to this and you have your block. So you'll be able to get in there, get going. And it's nice because it can also use a double focus. So you can see we have 2 nice sized prints here. So let's check it out in a little bit more detail. First off, we have a nice long strip assembly like normal, easy peasy. And we're just gonna cut 1 unit off of it like that. Doop. And then the second part of the block is also very easy. We're gonna cut some rectangles and make some half square triangles, which you've already mastered because you did Tumbler. And that's gonna go on top of our rectangle. So this is gonna be one of our units and this is our other unit. Then you're just gonna sew those 2 together. And like I would pin on my 4 patches, right where the points meet in the center, I would just pin right here where that junction meets up. And then you're gonna end up with your block. And I love this angle right here. It adds so much movement to your quilt. And like I said at the quilt, this is a 1 block. So you're just gonna make it this exact same thing, exact same process, but you're gonna do it in a different colorway. And then that one's gonna go right here. So you can see we have our nice 1 block with our focus right here and our block with our 3 right here. And it's going to create a lot of movement down your quilt and also on the diagonal with these little bits meeting up, kind of going like down the side of the quilt, which I always love when quilts have a little bit of a diagonal movement. I just think it's fun. All right, now let's look at this fabric. We have for our number 1, we have this nice textural print on here. We've got some swirls and some geometrics going on, and it's on a nice soft gray background, and the print is a white and a black. So it has this nice contrast going on. And this is gonna go in our focus position right here and on one of our borders. And then our number 2 is this gray. It's this weathered texture. So our number 2 fabric will really offer a lot of contrast to both our number 1 and our number 2, but keep a lot of interest going since it has that texture. And that's gonna go everywhere you see our square here in the center and on our corner, as well as one of our borders. Our number 3, like I mentioned earlier, this is the same print but a different colorway, which I really like doing when you have a double focus like this. I think it's just fun. It adds a lot of interest, but it keeps it really cohesive. And that's gonna go in one of our boomerangs here, as well as on our border and binding. And I love that monochromatic look. I think it is so kind of elegant, really, with those grays and that black and that white popping through. I think it's just so nice. And the gray offers a nice background so that you can see all of the hard work that you did. And that diagonal line I was mentioning really shows up, having those 2 very contrasting colors in there. I think it turned out really, really nice. Now this kit is called Soft and Slate, and it's using the Boomerang pattern. So if you're looking for your next project, I hope you give some of these a try. And if you make any of them, I would love to see them. Send your pictures to welisten@fabriccafe.com. And if you want to see some ideas for quilt tops that you could make in a day, be sure to watch the video that pops up. Happy quilting!